To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thanks for coming, everybody. I think we'll pass on the minutes so we can take care of other pressing issues, if that's okay. So people have some time restraints. So we'll go right to new business. OPM contract. You care to stand up and
Sure.
start all over? How's that?
And I did, if it's okay, I brought some discussion outline that, of things that I'd like to cover with the group.
That's fine. Yep.
Good. My name is John Winokur. Hello, everyone. I am from Strategic Building Solutions, the OPM for the project, going back many, many years. I've met some of you a long time ago, and others are totally new faces. So I do want to say hello in that regard.
Welcome back.
Thank you, thank you. It's exciting to be back, and we've done a lot of exciting things since we started with you, and I want to share some of that with you. Let me just pass these out. I don't know the best way to do this, but I made a bunch of copies, not knowing how many folks would be here. If you take one and pass it down. Is it okay if I just pass the others around the room?
Yeah, that's sure. Yeah, we're
Okay.
gonna do.
Is it okay to just pass them? There should be plenty. Thank you.
Single sheet. Just stick it up there in case
There's another one back here too. So what I thought, if it's okay, is that I'd like to get to know who each of you are as well, because I think it's important for us to establish a relationship. I've had the opportunity to talk with Ruth over the last several months, and we've started getting to know each other again, and Bill I know from many years ago, but we haven't talked much, and other than seeing each other at conference.
Been the best years of your life, too.
Things are looking up.
I've gotten older and fatter since then, but it's kind of how life goes. So I am a principal, one of the co-founders of Strategic Building Solutions. I'm the one who originally interviewed with all of you back quite some time ago. I spend a lot of my time working on MSBA projects, a variety of them, and I'll go through some of them when we get going in just a minute. Actually, why don't I go through that list? So I put together a list because I know everything about this project has been exceptional, as you just said. I mean, there's been nothing that goes the normal way with this project, starting from the original land that was to be the site of a new school, to how the process has gone, the search for new sites, and the current status of where you are with this property being given over to you for a new school site. And I've worked on a lot of MSBA projects that are traditional and are non-traditional. So our firm right now, I just put some of the active ones on here, and they're all different scales. These are just alphabetically, a lot of them right around this neck of the woods. We're doing the VOTEC at Assabet. That just started construction. That's a massive 360,000 square foot school or something that's all fully occupied. It's being renovated over, I think, 12 phases for about $65 million. In the western part of the state, the western edge of the Berkshire Hills Regional School District, we're in the process now of going out and asking the 3 communities to support a $55 million project. We just got approved by the Board of Ed, another phased occupied renovation and expansion for that school. East Hampton, we just finished the new high school. That one started the same time as this project did, by the way, and we've occupied that school, and we're about to tear down. We are tearing down the old high school right now, and so by the end of the summer that will all be done. North Adams, an elementary school in the northwest corner of the state. It's a historic renovation. It's in design, about to go into construction. Northborough Elementary School is just in preliminary planning right now. North Brookfield, we've done a lot of accelerated or green repair projects. You guys might have heard about these program offerings from the MSBA. We've got a few of them active. We've done a whole lot more. So we're doing one in North Brookfield and also in Wachusett at set 3 of the schools in those communities of the regional school district. South Tolland Regional School District there, this is another really unique one. We're here, we actually created a new regional school district as part of the program, and we're able to secure an extra $20 million in funding from the state towards doing 3 repair projects and expansion projects. Those are all in construction now. At Sutton, not too far down the road. It's in the middle of a middle high school renovation expansion project. West Bridgewater and West Springfield, you can see just lots of projects. And I guess the reason I wanted to do this is because the MSBA process is really, it's really far developed. It's complicated, but it's thoughtful. There's reasons the MSBA has all these steps in there. And if you want to secure their funding to do a project, and everyone does, because they're willing to pay the majority of your project, you've got to follow the rules and the regulations. You have to take the steps along with them. There are lots of them. Every phase of a project, you have to go through checklists. And I did bring some examples of some of the checklists we use internally just to help guide ourselves and the designers. Really, by each phase, each module, as they call it, we have different pieces that we have to do, that the designers have to do, that you have to do, and we help you to get there. And it's really important to just recognize that fact, that there is a process. If you want the money coming from the state, and again, anyone who undertakes one of these projects, you want that money because it's your tax money that's going to fund these school projects. And if you don't take it, someone else will. There's a whole line of districts out there trying to get into this program. And it is unique that they've kept you in this program all these years. Most districts would get bounced out and they just say, that's fine. You know, we appreciate that you wanted to, but if you're not going to do it, someone else will take your spot pretty quickly. I go to a lot of board meetings, so I see the list, and I do understand that. And it's an important sort of decision that will come before you sooner rather than later. And I know you all have been contemplating lots of things in that regard as you've gone through it. So with that, that's a little bit of background. I'm not going to go into too much more on that, but I'd really like to just hear, if I could, ask you to just tell me a little bit about your own backgrounds and, from the building committee side, just so I can get a better understanding of you. Is that possible, Hank? Could I ask
Sure,
you?
yeah, I'm on a school committee. I've been on a couple other building committees before this, and also on this one, so
How long have you been on the school committee, Hank?
42 years.
42 years on the school committee.
He's only 37!
Holy cow.
It's a professional school committee member.
Yeah, just stupid.
How many kids have you had come through the system?
6, yes.
Wow. That'll string it out for a while.
Right.
Thankfully, it's not.
They're all out now?
Yeah,
Terrific. The grandkids coming through?
yeah.
All right. Good luck. Carrie, I heard you talking about kindergartner and
Yeah, so I grew up in Templeton. I actually went to Templeton Center, then East Templeton, which is closed down, and then through Narragansett. So I grew up here, moved away after college, came back, and I've been on this committee for 8 years now.
oh, wow.
My first daughter was 2 weeks old when I started. My second daughter was 2 weeks old when I started this. She's now going to 3rd grade. So the hope is for one of my children to step foot in this new school that we're trying to build. So I have 3 girls.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then I'm a teacher, a 4th grade teacher, not in this school district, but in another one.
Oh, which district?
Wachusett.
Oh, perfect. Bill, how long have you been with the district now?
13 years.
13 years?
Then started out as a residential and commercial carpenter. I did that up to 20 years. In the last 15 years, I've been working in facility management, both in healthcare and in the educational field. I'm really glad to be in the educational field. And I guess the most exciting thing I'm embarking on now, I'm the charter rep for Central Mass and the Mass Facility Administrators Association. So that's a lot of responsibility, but I'm looking forward to getting the guys together and working on some fun stuff.
Kirk, I know we talked a little bit on the phone with Jeff and Ruth, I think, it was several months ago.
Yeah.
I don't recall much of your background. You have a construction background, if I recall.
Yeah, I'm a site developer.
Okay. In town for a while?
Yeah, my whole life, lived here my whole life, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And I'm chairman of the planning board as well in town.
Okay, terrific.
And 5 or 6 other committees I can't think of.
So you like spending your nights in the...
No, I don't. I'm really getting sick of it.
Your days out on site? And your nights
And the hero that actually picked up the phone and called Senator Brewer, which gets us all here today.
Yeah.
Yeah, that worked out well. But that was a big favor, that we keep moving forward.
Are there other members?
I've known
of the
Senator
committee?
Brewer for years, that's why.
Oh, yeah.
That's how it worked out. But
There are other members of the committee who aren't present, I assume?
No, well, Julie Farrell.
Julie's here.
Teresa.
Hi, Teresa Casper. I worked for the district for 33 years as a secretary. Lived here for 50 years. Shouldn't say that, right?
I mean, your whole life, right?
My whole life. And
Yeah.
my kids have gone through the schools here.
Terrific. And you're a fisher woman, I know, from
Yeah.
our conversation before this. Excellent. And Julie, is it?
Yes.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
It's good to finally meet you.
Yeah, well, you all too, and I'm sorry I'm lost with all those people, I'm asking all this basic stuff.
Yeah,
But you're on the select board, is
I'm on the
that?
select board. I was formerly a member of the school committee. I
Oh,
was a
okay.
member of the former building committee for the school. I'm a librarian in the middle school over in Ash West. Bill knows that building
Yeah.
quite well.
Utopia.
Yeah. Not really, but it's a good place. I have 3 kids who were born and raised here and went through the school system.
Terrific. And are there any other members who aren't here tonight?
No,
Yeah.
it's John and I and Jeff's and ex officio.
Oh, Chris Stewart.
Chris Stewart's not here.
Sure. How are you? Yeah.
You're right.
we talked
Chris
about-
Stewart, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, you too. I thought you were on vacation for.
Just came back.
Oh,
Didn't want to miss
Just for
this
them, just to meet you.
meeting. Just kidding.
isn't that fun?
Came back yesterday.
So that's the
Oh,
committee.
Chris is the only one missing, okay.
I'm just thinking through, I'm doing a mental checklist of the composition of the building committee requirements for the MSBA as
We
you
have
guys are
that,
talking.
we have that list and we have it all filled out. Did we change it from last time?
We changed somebody's criteria. Oh, Chris Stewart's on is at large because he was on as selectman
Right.
originally, right?
I don't know if we have a copy, but we have an updated list that we went over and we filled in all the categories.
Okay,
Many of us fulfilled a couple roles.
right, right.
I don't seem to have it with me, do you have it there?
That's okay.
There's with
Carrie has a
having
copy of
everything.
everything.
She should have been.
And why she's not the clerk, I don't know. She
I
has
don't know either, I'm
everything.
thinking she should be.
We'll sign her up in her abstention, so you better keep coming to the meetings.
There we go.
Are there any, before kind of talking project stuff, and any questions you guys have for me, just to, in this kind of getting to know each other thing that I can share with anyone or anything, or?
You now have an official office address here in the Commonwealth out in Agawam, I noticed?
Yep, yeah, we've been in, well, we were in Chicopee for years, now we're that office space, and we've been in Agawam for several years. And we've got about maybe 15 people that use that as their home base all the time, but frankly, most of our staff is out on sites with all these projects. We've got trailers set up or something, and we've got 2 or 3 people at each project site. Anyone else with questions before we get into stuff?
No, I think we gotta get right into stuff because we're
Okay.
pushing the clock.
Contract, you have on here contract, I know we set, I don't know what you want to talk about with that, or what your thought is on that regard, so I'll leave it to you guys to ask me what you want. I have copies of the contract, I was asked to change the name and address on here.
Going from the regional school district to the town of Templeton, correct?
Correct.
Everything else the same. Jeff, did you get a copy of that? You had a chance to read that over?
Not with the change on it, but
Okay.
the rest, no, except how cheaply you will work. The exact dollar figure, I think, is as yet to be determined, but, yeah, that's the only thing that was the name change.
Well, so the dollar figure is part of it, and it is an hourly. We're required to work hourly with MSBA projects. So I did take a stab, honestly, it's pretty hard to know with something.
And that's something, with the committee,
Okay,
and then it would just come before the board to go and sign.
okay. So, can we discuss that?
Right.
So what we have is, as part of the contract, basically, there's an MSBA standard contract for our services that there's really not, the only thing that any of us can change is by filling in the dollar amount and filling in the address of the parties, who the contract is between, otherwise there's no modifications that can take place. We are required, as I was just saying, by contract to work on an hourly basis and not to exceed. And so I did put in a figure of $75,000 as a not to exceed fee, taking us through June. As Kirk and Jeff know, we had conversations back to amend our contract just from a time standpoint several months ago, so that it didn't expire, and to leave that open for you. The difficulty with knowing, I've got a lot of history, and I can track pretty closely how much typical projects in this phase take, and what the fees are and how it works. This is anything but typical. A lot of work has been done that we're hopeful can still be used and picked up and not having to be replicated at all. But also, we don't know, I don't know what kind of data you actually have from DCAM. I don't know how much is going to be usable again and where we're going to go. So frankly, it's a little bit of a stab in the dark at this point on the $75,000 number. Because it's hourly, that's where I feel like I've got some level of protection and you guys have some level of protection. But I do think that your overall amount of money that you have right now is not much. I mean, it's hardly typical for a project that has a long, long way to go. So I'm conscious of that. Frankly, one of my thoughts of why I'm here alone tonight, usually I don't come alone to these meetings. I'll have someone who's going to be more the day-to-day hands-on person with this, but I'm trying to cut back until we really get a game plan and we really have more concrete action. I don't want to have any redundancy in terms of hours. So I'm taking some of those simple sorts of steps. But that's really how I came up with that figure, if that makes sense.
Okay. Mr. Ritter, do we have the final report from DCAM as far
We do
as?
not. No, it's still on tap, and OPATCA's on vacation, we left a message for him, but we have their preliminary draft for the meeting, but not the final report from their house stocks.
Okay, which has a lot of,
I can share
Topography.
with Jonathan the preliminary report. We've got topo maps, they've done a fair amount of,
placement and
Yeah.
drives and, recreation, general layout.
again, the devil is clearly in the detail, and until we
Yeah,
have
it's-
final detailed numbers and all the appendices that you'd like to see, which I don't have, but we've got a good rough sketch at this stage. They
Well,
owe us that as a deliverable.
Yeah, and I know you don't want to hear this, but I'm not sure how much of that's going to be relevant going on. I know
Depends on what kind of a building you build.
it does, and you don't yet know that.
Yeah.
That's a key issue. You've got to go through the study. To get the money, you've got to do the study, and the study requires, well, that's what we're going to talk about, some of these next things, to go through steps. And, I did see that early phase of a draft of the report. I can't remember the group's name.
Yes.
BSC.
BSC, that's right. And there's a lot of good information, and the devil is in the detail. To see how far the survey goes, and do we get the CAD files that go along with it, and do we get all the electronic information, the geotech borings, and wetlands mapping, and everything else that's required for us to really study the site. But it's all good. I mean, it's all positive steps.
There actually was very little wetlands, just a little bit which would be buffer zone infractions at the entrance. Other than that, there isn't any on the whole site. I think we
That's all.
are going to get the CAD file on it, if I remember right in the
Yeah.
conversation.
It's owed.
Yeah,
it's owed.
it's owed to us, so we will follow up as early as next week when
Yeah, as soon
this
as
all back
David's
gets back
he
to
said he-
vacation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all required to the MSBA. There's nothing,
Right.
there's no choice about this sort of stuff, that's all.
Right, but I'm saying if we can get it from the state, and it's a hell of a lot easier than having two people create the
Oh,
same
absolutely.
documents.
So we're saying it's a matter of getting clear, in-depth, concise information to John.
Which I do believe we do have, maybe not 100% of what they would need, because somebody doing somebody else's job, but I
But
think he's got enough meat and potatoes to start, because we have a CAD file, because it is I think it's a 2-foot contours, I think, it's either 2 or 5-foot contours, so.
It won't supplant the secondary redundant process, but it certainly won't hold it up either.
Right.
Just understand.
Yeah, and that's what we're counting on, is the fact that hopefully a big chunk of work is already passed. What we're seeing, just for feasibility study fees for our firm and our competitors, all the fees are on the state database, state website. Anyone can go look at any of this stuff, but typically for this phase of work. It's going to be between $100,000 and $150,000 for our services. And that's where I think 75 gets us. It recognizes the fact that a lot of work's hopefully been done already, and we can bypass a lot of pieces, but I think until there's further clarity as to what we have and exactly how that process is going to unfold, it's hard to know. For instance, I'll give you the designer. That's one of the things we need to talk about tonight. Do you want to go with SMMA to keep the process going, or do you want to start all over again? That's one of the options that the MSBA has given you all. And it's a big, significant decision in lots of ways.
Who do you feel would pick up the contract with the money remaining?
Well, frankly, I don't think you have enough money remaining to do all the work to get you through schematic design. I don't think that that's going to be an option for you. I think that the question is to get through feasibility study, the preferred schematic choice, to choose a site. You still don't have, I know you have a site that you would like to build on, but the MSBA hasn't approved that site. And that's the hurdle that you need to be thinking about, is that if you want them to fund 60 to 70% of the project, even have that as an option, you've got to do all this stuff. And it's going to sound painful because you had DCAN donate so much of this, the state already, but you still have to do it. So the easiest would be, in my mind, to continue with SMMA through this juncture of collecting all the information they've already done. They've done the programming. We need to just refresh that. They've done the evaluations of the existing schools. They've done kind of the heavy lifting to get you through now to evaluate that site, rather than starting from scratch. That if that team was ready to go again and we weren't starting with all new players, I would think that that would be the most economical way to continue.
You would think so.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions. Phil has been pushing in design. It's probably a design he would like to see eventually become a model school. I think he's got a real hot commodity there, and he wants us to utilize that. I'd like to know how much flexibility is built into that design, because it's a finger-type design. And we, with what our preliminary stuff is showing us, you know, we need to put a parking lot in, room for septic, and the like. Hopefully we're able to get water up to the site. None of that's real limiting, but it is the fact that his design, it's hard to build anything into it. It's not L-shaped, it's not linear, it's not really rectangular either, but it doesn't allow for a lot of interior or anterior space.
Okay, so can we just step back and talk overall
Yes.
process? Is it okay?
Yeah.
We're gonna move away from contract though, and I do want to put closure to that, because obviously, from a personal standpoint, without a contract, that's a pretty significant step for me. So I'd like to understand if we're on or off, but let's talk about how the whole thing works. So typical process is, and I don't want to, if I'm being redundant, just tell me and I'll speed up. But the typical process with the MSBA is you get invited into this program, into a feasibility study assessment. Two big chunks to that. One is that you do the preliminary design. Basically, you're doing all the background study and studying all of the options you have to get to a point where you choose an option that you want to pursue. That's called the preferred schematic. That's a huge phase of work. And then the second phase of work is schematic design. And the schematic design means that you've chosen an option that the state has agreed with and the board of directors has signed off on, and now you're really going to study the heck out of it so that you know what you're talking about. So in phase one, I'll call it just for simplification, the preferred schematic phase, that's where you're evaluating, you're looking at your enrollment so that everything that you're planning around is something that makes sense not for today but for 10 years from now. You're looking at your existing conditions so you can understand how much it would cost to just fix the buildings you got. You're looking at what the program needs are, so what educationally you should be doing compared to state guidelines, as well as your own academic programs. You're looking at special ed programs. You're looking at all the different options that are available, and then you're studying options. You're studying everything from just fixing what you've got to tearing everything down and building new buildings to replace the schools that you've got, and everything in between. So the idea is, again, that you do a pretty exhaustive, high-level analysis, understanding the details, but kind of building up, and you get some cost orders of magnitude, so you know it might cost X dollars to do this option and Y dollars to do this, And then you come up with a recommendation of what your preferred option is. Doesn't mean you're gonna get that, but the state wants to work with you collaboratively to evaluate that. You've been through a lot of that, you understand that. Then you get to a preferred option. Your preferred option is obviously from where you've been, to build a new school, to get rid of the 2 buildings that you got, combine it into a single, get more efficiencies, get the modern, and kind of get the biggest bang for your buck. So that would be the next step, but you've got to complete that cycle. That hasn't all been assembled, all that different study and all those different aspects to it. Once you do that, then you go into schematic design. The schematic design is pretty rigorous. That's where you really get into detail about how the layout will work, what the fingers or not fingers. Is it going to be pods? Is it going to be floors? Is it going to be double-loaded corridors? You know, how's it going to break out? How's the space going to be organized? How's it going to fit on the site? What are you going to do with your water storage tanks? Where are they going to go? How's septic going to flow on here? This is where you need real geotech information, all the surveys. You need all that information, because the point is that at the end of this, you want a detailed enough set of documents that we can take it to independent construction cost estimators, 2 different firms who know nothing about the project. All they're going to see is what's in the plans and what's given to them, and they're going to tell you and us what they think it's going to cost in real-life market conditions to build it. Not what we want to hear, but what we need to hear. And once they give us those numbers, we're going to put it into the MSBA budget document. It's called a 3011, and it's going to fill out, make us think about everything from those hard construction costs to all the soft costs, like the furniture. How much are we going to spend on furniture? How much are we going to spend on technology? Are we going to pay permit fees or aren't we going to pay permit fees? Are we, what are they going to be? What's our advertising cost? You know, anything having to do with it, contingencies, etc. And then we're going to look at what's reimbursable, what's not reimbursable, because not everything is. And obviously you want to maximize everything. There's incentive points you can get, so your base reimbursement might be 60%, but you can get an extra 2% for green initiatives, you can get 1% for this model school, construction manager. There's all different ways you can get additional incentive points, and we've got to evaluate what's reimbursable, what's not, and how you get the most out of that. So that all takes place in the second big chunk. Once you go through that second big chunk, then you go to the state and you get a project scope and funding agreement. That's the formal contract from the state that says if you build it, we're guaranteeing you this pot of money. We're locking in your rate changes all along the way. So what your rate was back in 2007 or 8 when we started this is not what your rate is today. Your rate has changed. I don't know what it is. It's Berkshire's, it's dropped 5%, so they lost 5% of their reimbursement over their course of time while they were waiting. Some districts it's gotten better. It depends upon lots of different local factors that go into that. But until you lock in the contract, your rate is variable, and that's an important sort of thing that you have to think about.
And that's an important piece of information that needs to get to the voters.
Yeah.
And it's part of the reason that I researched what I researched and got the name change, because as often happens, it's taken so many years and the votes and the way it was told, and then whatever happens and how it happens is really not important, but it slides over and there's animosity and there's, you know, questions and, well, you've won this amount of money and we're going to spend more money, and do we know what we're going to get? At least now the path is narrowed to where the final answer, whose lap it ends up, and it's the Board of Selectmen, and I believe it brings clarity and the voters can have a place to turn to. And it's a heavily watched meeting, and they will not get the feeling, right or wrong, that, well, this money was spent at a committee meeting that hardly anybody attends. So that's part of the reason that I did that. It's clarity. The people's direct representative is the select board, and when that piece of information comes out, well, I thought we were getting 59. No, this is it, and it's coming from your direct representative. I think from an explanation point, just for a smooth path to keep this project going, to get to the ultimate question is, do you want to fund them on to build the school? Because that's where we're headed. And we are going to be asking for more money to do all these steps. And I believe if it's coming from the select board, a central location, a central mouthpiece, a speaker, you always come to this group to get your answers, and the final decision made will benefit this project. Hopefully, your daughter gets to go there, because it is needed, and that's going to change the percentage more funding is gonna be required, let's not, joke around that we might be able to do this with 200 grand, because it's not gonna happen. And coming from the Board of Selectmen, like I said, one central path to a group of people to give the answer and the final okay and the checks and balances of where their money is being spent. They know where to go, to who to talk to get their answers. And the Board of Selectmen says, well, we'll bring in, Mr. Miniker or whoever from SBS to explain all this.
Right.
And, they won't be going back and forth, well, we're going to the district, well, I thought it was the town, or I thought it was, no, it's this. And, keep them focused to hopefully convince them to spend a little more money to get where you all started to go, because you voted for the 550 to go down this road. Let's keep it going, and just not, as history has shown, piss away 300,000-400,000 and then, hell with it.
Right.
You're not accomplishing nothing, and
Right.
hopefully, working with you and your generous offer from a personal standpoint to do the step to follow through. So I'm hoping that it's a central main information.
I agree with absolutely everything you said. I mean, transparency is the key in this, because it is all public money, and it's a big decision. I mean, this is not insignificant. I deal with these communities all the time, and you can't, it never works to not tell everyone anything they want to hear. I mean, you can't please everyone. There's no way everyone is going to agree with everything. That's just reality. Anytime you're spending public money, it has a tax impact, and something isn't getting done in your life personally or publicly. It's just it's to me, it's just a value matter of the point in time as to is it the best thing or not. And I think all of our jobs, my job in particular, is to help bring you all the information you need to make good decisions, to understand what the options are, to steer you through it. I'll spend a lot of my time working with the MSBA also to maximize reimbursement and to ease the process as much as possible, so you can get the best, hopefully the best option and the best payback. But ultimately, obviously, this is all your decision to go or no go on it.
Sure.
I had a question about timeline, when we would need more funding to finish, to get to the point where MSBA will.
Yeah, I need to think about that further, to be honest with you. I need to understand better exactly. So we had some conversations, I had several conversations with the MSBA today about how the process, they see it unfolding and what we'll need to do, and we're not absolutely certain on that. What they have offered you all that's unique is an opportunity to combine two processes into one. So since you started, it's all changed, and they're letting you kind of bypass one of them, which is really good because you've done a lot. So I've got to go back and go through SMMA to just figure out exactly what those are. The other thing is this decision, are you sticking with SMMA or not, has a massive impact on schedule. Just to, if we started all over again with a new designer, and I'll support you whichever way, it really doesn't matter to me. But typically it takes about 3 months to get a new design team on board, so you just need to, things won't start. for
Budget
another
time
3
as well
months.
as money. All right, so we have to make some decisions before you can actually give us a projection of when we need, because we have to go to the voters to ask for money, and that's not something we can do at the drop of a hat. It takes us time to build a case and actually make an override and ask people to raise their taxes.
And understanding how much is an appropriate amount to ask for is the next
Right.
question that you're gonna ask, and that's where I just need to understand what data you have, what condition it's in, and I can't do that until I have the design professionals on board to evaluate it, and we actually have the data in hand to evaluate, so.
Well, it makes no sense to me to change designers now when they already have the history where they need to blow a little bit of dust off, but just want to, remind them that that is done. Hopefully they don't need reminding. If they want to stay on, I have no problem myself keeping them on. We're not going to rehire them and say, hey, look, we get paid twice for the same work. If they run like that, I'm not interested. We will go out for bid for somebody else. I mean, you have a working rapport with them. I wouldn't know if they were sitting in the room. Well, I know all these guys aren't them, so I mean, I have a little advantage, but.
So would it be appropriate for us to make a motion to
Keep,
keep
what was the name
Bill
of the company?
SMMA.
Cannelli
Sims, Manning, Keys.
as the designer?
Yes. How many of these projects that you have listed do you use?
Use SMMA. We are working with them on the West Springfield Model High School and the Berkshire Hills High School. I think those two.
Does everybody understand how designers are chosen for project? Because the OPM doesn't select them, correct?
No,
They
we
do.
really run the process. No, you don't, actually.
No, who does?
There's a designer selection panel at the state that will select your next project.
DSP.
Who's that?
DSP, exactly.
Is that new since?
No.
Was there?
You were able to bypass that last time, a bit. Not bypass, but accelerate it where you didn't have to do interviews. So you'll have 3 representatives out of 13 on the designer selection panel.
Okay.
If you go there, you can influence the outcome, but you can't direct the outcome. And the districts go about half and half as to which one you get.
The panel's divided on our choice.
Anyhow, I made a motion, I didn't know if anybody wanted to second it.
Second.
Thanks, Dick.
All right, motion made and seconded to retain SMMA for design engineering services. I should say made, did I say retain or keep them, I should say?
I would suggest that you select to do that through this preferred schematic phase only at this point in time, for the simple reason that the,
Which would be phase 1, so to speak.
yeah, it has different phase numbers and names
Yeah,
for
okay.
the state level, but the only rationale behind that is that you may have the option or the direction from the state to go into the model school program, and they don't have a model school.
Right.
So I think by keeping that option before you, it just doesn't foreclose on it.
Okay.
So I'll modify my, make a motion to retain SMMA design through preferred schematic. You want a second again?
And, okay, made and seconded, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay.
And typically, if I may, I would read that negotiation on your behalf and start to map out the scope, evaluate what they've got, and then bring forward to you all a proposal, and then give you just opinions on it. And we can work on that for the next meeting, but obviously I can get you information in advance as soon as I...
And we will get you the CAD file for everything that we have, everything that the state has done up till now. I mean, we know the soil's perked up there, but under state guidelines, you can't, I think it was, how was it, Jeff? You can't legally perk state land without a certain person from the state there.
State,
But so
DEP has
our
to
unofficial
certify the
perks,
perk.
we'll call them, passed.
Okay.
Because we didn't have the proper person standing on state soil who's on the state
I
payroll
think it's a
to witness
good
it.
general point for the committee to understand that it's a tremendous boon to be awarded a state land grant to build a school. And that's, you don't want to look the proverbial gift horse in the mouth.
Right.
But anything that comes from the state comes with strings attached. This is just one of them. There'll be others in the course of this project that you don't even see coming. Kurt just referred to the fact that we know the land perks. We had a soil engineer perk it. It's completely good. But this state land has to be site visited and proven by the DEP engineer
Assigned to
who
that site.
will do the same perk test, but the state, protecting the state's interest on state land is what that's all about. And there'll be other unexpected hurdles along the way. That's more of a notice to you, Jonathan, that we may not even see these things coming because it's state land.
Well, and I don't understand, I know from that report and early conversations that there is a certain chunk of the acreage, it's a pretty big site, but there's only so much of it that's cleared, and whether that's agricultural and you can use it or not, I don't understand where you stand.
I can give you an update after.
Yeah, but those are all really, really important factors in this. I do think I agree with you. I mean, the fact that you were gifted this that's not normal, and that's worth probably $1 million right there.
Yeah.
That would not be reimbursed from the state, so that's very significant.
They'd be paying us to take their land, wouldn't that be sweet?
So, given
Carrie.
the fact that we've asked him
Sorry,
to negotiate the designer contract, don't you think we should vote to sign his contract, or has that
Yeah,
already been?
Well, I have.
We're getting there.
Yeah, I have a quick
Okay.
Carrie's
question.
got a question for us.
So, Board of Selectmen's meeting last night, we had the whole discussion about the signing off on contracts going through the Board of Selectmen. So, is the vote that we just took okay, or does what we just voted on now need to go before the Board of Selectmen for them to verify, approve, and Jeff to sign off on
I
it.
think, is that contract, see, I'm new to this, so like I said, I apologize for not being up to speed on it, but correct me if I'm wrong, does SMMA work under you?
No, they'll work
Oh.
directly for you, and I think what would happen, if I could, is the same process that we're going through. I would bring you something for this committee to vet and recommend to the selectmen for their ultimate approval. Is that fair?
My understanding, yeah.
Well, I think
I
the-
believe we have to vote,
The intent of
send
the,
it to the selectmen, that we have to approve it.
I think the intent of the
You said we
motion
can
was to
approve it, then you sign
entertain
off
the
on
fact of
contracts.
retaining them, but we
I've
still need to
seen
see what they
no
have.
reason of changing the horse in the middle of the race, so to speak.
Yeah.
To just delay this process another 3 or 4 months and
And more
potentially
money,
paying twice
more money.
and then
Hey,
spending more
you
money.
can double up.
But didn't last night, Jeff and Julie, didn't you vote to have him sign
As chair.
this contract?
Right.
Okay,
So
so
the chair
this
can
contract,
sign-
and he's just gonna look into it and bring back a recommendation to us. You're gonna kind of,
Yeah,
Yes,
and I'm not sure it'll be a recommendation. I'll bring you something along with the information as to my
okay.
thoughts of it. I'm obviously going to do what you've done to me, which is make it clear that there's not a lot of money and we want to get as much bang for the buck. And
That was clear?
with them.
Oh, I'm so surprised.
Yeah.
But do we as a committee have to
Straight up
vote
want
to sign
to.
that contract, or did we already?
Um,
That was my question.
Which the one
The one that
tonight?
we want signed tonight. Did
Yes,
we already
We,
do
we
it?
did at the last meeting but we knew it had to go through selectmen because
Okay,
as being
okay.
town fathers, Jeff was here. Because I said, I can't sign it as chairman of the appointed committee, not
Okay.
a contract, a money financial
Right. But we
contract,
took the
contractual agreement.
proactive step of the chair to
Filtering it
sign
out like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're
the
done.
contract, because we knew, we were pretty sure, these guys were staying, and we wanted to, because you don't want to change more and more and just prolong this thing. So that was done. It's just this committee has to ask and vote, and when you do, I'll sign it. We'll get this, keep this process going.
You make a recommendation, and then it'll be on the agenda, and the selectmen will vote for the chair to sign.
So they didn't vote for the chair to sign last night? I thought you guys did.
No, we did.
They did.
For John,
This
For
For
that, I'm
John's
talking about
contract.
to keep SMMA on
Okay, I
food
got it.
preferred
I'm sorry, I
schematic
was
design.
confused. I got it.
So do I think the question, if I could, that I remember you asking, are you guys okay with the 75,000? I think that was the question that was put before you all to sign off on, and if you were, then I think, if I heard it correctly, you were okay?
If they vote and take that and to keep.
as a do
doing
not
it,
exceed number, and that will get us, how far, John?
Well, it'll certainly get us through.
We'll keep the clock rolling and keep the
Yeah, it'll
the
get us through
dialogue
the-
going with MSBA
It'll get
and
us
keep
through
the
the
project
preferred
alive.
selection, it'll get us through to the point of, my thought is that I will be able to take you through and help you for information sessions when you go out and ask for the next round of money to continue the project in the up or down. So it'll take you for a while. How long, this goes back to the schedule question. I put in here, I want to say June of 2014, just to again give time to.
Get us to get to the annual town
Nothing's
meeting.
happened too rapidly, so we could do it a lot faster, but
Well, no, but at least it gives us time to get all the information and actually have real numbers for the annual town meeting to move forward. We'll get as much as we can get done with what we have to spend. Because by then, it's like, this is what we got. We're right here, we need this much more to get through the gate. And then you're just waiting for the MSBA to say, okay, you've been chosen, and now we tell you, what, see you next year, we're gonna ask you for a whole bunch.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what it boils down to, right?
well, it would go to town meeting and then go to ballot,
Right.
so you have to have those two.
Bill?
Question,
Yeah.
when we met in our first meeting, when we formed a few years back, one of the first things we did was discuss responsibilities regarding communication. I don't know that anything has changed, but now that we're back together and we're restarted, we should talk about communication, effective communication, what's good, what's forbidden, and the responsibilities herein. And as I see that the town seeks recognition, rightfully so, on the responsibility base, does that change our expectations of communication? Who would Jonathan talk to about issues? And I'm very sorry I have to leave. I have another commitment. I apologize to you, Jonathan, the first time getting back together in the committee. But I do have to leave. If I started a fire, Please put it out.
Nice job, Bill.
And please, Bill, call me John, it's
Hey, John.
easier.
You bet.
Do not play with matches anymore.
And sharp objects?
Yeah.
But it is, if I may on that, that's a good point, because there's communications, I need to have clarity from the team standpoint that I'm leading, and also the MSBA. It's really important that I'm the conduit to the MSBA. I work half for the MSBA and half for you, but my job, anytime you guys go directly to them, my phone rings, and they just relay the conversation, and they say, get them under control. You know, I want this through you.
Well, I think the easiest way to do it is that, pending Jeff's signature tonight, is that we should basically summarize it as in, we can meet as often as we have to. There's nothing gonna be, you're not gonna call up at 2 o'clock on a Friday and say, I need an answer by 4 o'clock. It just doesn't work that way. So I would just say via email through, whether it be Ruth is the clerk right now, but, and all decisions will come through a meeting and then get back to you. If there's nothing, like Bill said, there should be no fires going right now. If somebody needs an answer that fast, I don't wanna give the answer. Because the reason why somebody wants an answer so fast, it's not time, I don't like big decisions and not thought
As
out.
far as communication, and my whole point of exploring this and bringing this forward was for the selectmen to see like contracts and money and things. And as I reiterated last night, the vote and at the town meeting and what was projected to the taxpayers was the school committee, the elementary school building committee, like I said, would put out proposals for contractors, OPMs, things like that, negotiate the amount of money, the fees going to be paid and everything, vote on it and say, this is who we pick, this is the amount, blah, 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 and then present that to the Board of Selectmen to sign, as for the reasons that I stated to you. But as far as communication and how things are going at MSBA and everything, if someone from the committee and
I don't wanna overwhelm like Mr.
Yeah.
Ritter, because he has enough going with the town, but even,
But no, as far as, you know, getting a message to him or information,
Yeah.
to sort of get to the selectmen, so at least be kept up on. And we do have a member of the selectmen on the committee, and I'm gonna try to attend as many of these meetings as I possibly can. But as far as communicating, you know, with the committee, you know,
Yeah, usually,
it's their, in its essence, it's their
right.
game, it's just finalize the money thing and signing of contracts,
No,
obligations.
but 9 members work as one voice, so that's why we need to discuss it, because I don't think anybody should be making,
Yeah,
I
usually,
mean, if you call the school and say, you know, what's the enrollment as of yesterday, okay, that's something they can answer. They don't, the committee doesn't need to vote on the answer. That's readily available
that's what I was gonna say,
information.
is usually day-to-day is, for me, is with the superintendent, and that we would have.
If it's a
standing-
fact-finding thing.
Yeah, there's just, it's all educationally based, so they have, you know, between John and Ruth, they're gonna direct most of, and Bill, they're gonna know where most of the stuff is that we need the meetings on.
Right.
Usually, I like to have monthly standing building committee meetings where we're gathering all the information from that month and bringing it to you all to make decisions upon, or to send us back on, you know, the direction
Yeah,
you want us to do.
yeah.
But it takes, sometimes you need a special meeting because there might be hot issues, and we say, you know, every 2 weeks, we're gonna meet, and we kind of play that one by ear, but I think it's good for us to at least get together on a monthly basis and just have, there's always stuff to talk about and to cover at that kind of interval.
Yeah. When it comes to the actual inner workings of the actual school system itself, then yeah, you need to go through the school department.
If you call me and ask, remember the Board of Selectmen for their enrollment in school, I'll say, yeah, yep, I'll get back to you and I'll be on the other line. I'll say, it's
not
not
gonna
school,
work.
can you tell me? No, it's just, like I said, it was a thing about the money and the ultimate responsibility and communicating to the taxpayers. Because I don't want this to get off track and there's already been, you know, questions over, they've spent this amount of money and they haven't, you know, the school districts, they've done this, how come we didn't know about? No, I wanted to funnel the money-wise and the official signing off on things to come to the Board of Selectmen. The rest of the things, we don't need to micromanage the day-to-day things.
Yeah, we'll go to the board with the
Like
best decision as a
your
committee and
education
we feel
questions
the
or
best,
school
that's it.
enrollment or things like this. As long as there is a communication from this committee to the select board, you know, on a monthly, bi-weekly, monthly basis or something. But as far as communicating, nothing has changed on the vote of the intention of what the school building committee can do. And it's also smaller now than when it first started out. It was much too big and much too clumsy.
Was it
And,
19 members on the board? Was it 19, 17?
17.
So on the
17?
the
Carried sole
communication side, yeah,
selector.
the committee
Oh,
and
yeah.
issues
Taken down.
Okay,
do.
well, so,
I think we're about to entertain a motion
Okay.
to enter
Yes.
into a contract. Not to exceed 75,000.
Okay, want to start over with that one? Who made that one?
I think you started.
Yeah, I think you started
Do
to
you wanna
do it before you
continue?
got,
Yeah.
we got sidetracked.
We were in discussion, yeah. Okay, well, I'll entertain a motion for the committee to recommend the selectmen to sign the contract with John Winokur of, what's the name of your company?
Strategic Building Solutions?
Strategic Building Solutions to, of course, not to exceed $75,000. I don't know how to word it as far as how much we're gonna get out of that money, because it's too
Just
vague, so
leave it
at that.
Okay,
Okay.
and then the contract will go in, and I will second it.
Okay. Any discussion on it? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Yes.
Okay.
If somebody has a blue pen,
I have just.
There's a black one.
Hang on.
you have one, blue ink, or you're comfortable.
I just signed it myself, so. I hope if you could just look this over, make sure that we changed it correctly. Okay, can we talk process on this other stuff that I've got on here too, just so it's clear?
Yeah, can I just need to excuse myself for a minute, because I'm supposed to chair another meeting at 6:30, but Bob's co-chair, so he can do it. I think they can do it this way. You can go on without me,
Where did we get that form?
The initial compliance certificate, so the MSBA, what I've got on Roman numeral 3 is a series of documents that the MSBA directed you all to deliver to them to keep the process going. The first, the initial compliance certification, I don't know exactly where it is. Usually this is all done before we come on board, so I don't. If you go to the building with us in assembling your team section of the MSBA website, usually it's right there, otherwise we can ask Diane or Carolyn Walsh. Carolyn's on vacation this week. And,
I'll try to take a look for it this week.
Okay.
And see if I can pull it out.
School
That's
building
done.
committee composition, you have to submit that formally to them, that's gotta be signed. I believe original, so it's really important that you always sign things originally, don't photocopy anything. You need to have real signatures, I've had recently them rejected. Superintendent just photocopied something, MSBA needed 2 copies. And so they photocopied it, beautiful copy, on a color copier, and they rejected it and said, I need original, so.
Okay. Your contract with your designer is signed, so that OPM is done.
Thank you.
And the SMAA thing, I think, is just gonna require a couple of phone calls, because we have the existing contract signed, and,
Is the contract still valid?
well, that's what I said, we just, a couple phone calls, we can check on that. And we have time to schedule a meeting for one agenda thing
Are we gonna,
before, like Monday.
is it possible to get caught with the Procurement Act or not, because of the fact that this MSBA actually pre-screens these people, right?
Right, it's their process.
It's their process and their selection, so it's
Like I said,
not,
I
we
comply
didn't,
with 30 days.
we didn't go up to bid for them ourselves, did we?
I think a couple of phone calls.
We did?
I think.
The designer selection process is completely different from the construction.
As long as we're
Contract
redoing it
construction,
right,
which you'd be aware
then
of.
fine, right.
It's a blind process. You go to the designer selection board, it's based on review of credentials, not on price, because you do not select your designer based on price, it's state law. So it's, unless there's a compelling reason, and I hear none, there's no reason to change designer at this stage. The fee that they would charge is not a material point of discussion here, because it's set under state law. And it's only a matter of making sure that that contract is still valid and is still bound, and whatever the Ts and Cs are, once we determine all that, then we can proceed to redo it.
We need to fill that line on the application too.
Yeah, just a slight nuance to that, so it is a different contract, because what the.
It's a new contract, you're
Yeah,
right.
the MSBA directed you that you don't
Yeah.
have to go back through the process, you're allowed,
Yeah.
if you want, you can stick with them, but you have to put us and them under the new state contract, so.
That's correct.
It's a pretty simple move, but.
So the maintenance capital plan, Bill is going to, we're gonna get him the password and he'll be doing that. As far as enrollment update, we're gonna get the password and either Dr. Graziano or myself will be doing that one. And then we actually have E done, correct? We just did the 2 contracts.
Yep, so we've got one, so I'll submit one of these to them. Oh, one of these copies is for your files. I don't know who wants to maintain those, but
Which copy is that of what?
that's our contract.
Their
So
contract.
we just signed 3
It's
copies,
with the
one for
town.
you, one for me.
That's
one
with the
for
town, so
It should stay with the town.
it will stay with the town. It'll go to selectmen.
Mr. Ritter?
Mr. Ritter, yeah.
Okay.
And then F, I don't know what that means.
So what they're saying for specifically is they want to know, do you have care and control of this site? Is it the town site now? And if it's
That's a
not,
Jeff question.
Yes, contingent on building a school on it. I could say more or less. We have been granted a 26-acre parcel by the Commonwealth, signed into law, subject to the condition that we select a portion of that site, engineer a portion of that site, and build a school on a portion of that 26-acre site. Once we define the specific footprint that we need for the site, and leaving aside in this discussion the agricultural remediation necessary, then formal title in the form of a deed registered at the registry will be conveyed. So it's a parallel process of us picking a specific footprint for a design, staking it, engineering it, and then applying for a deed on that portion of a 26-acre area which is defined.
so what they have asked for that's really due this week is a formal letter outlining exactly that. And it should come on a signature from you, I think would be.
Yeah, the chairman of the board, we can draft something up, and then we will
Sure.
attach the state law. that's been-
Yeah, it doesn't have to be too much. I think
Yeah.
just what
I
you
was
said is
gonna-
perfect.
Yeah, we'll say the passage in the State House is exactly what you just said. Does it matter if
It's
the
a, it's a TBD, the
Does it?
actual site is a
Right.
TBD, and that, the legislation says that.
Does it matter if the governor's signature's on the piece of paper?
Well, I don't know. I
Because
think,
he's the one that signed it.
I think what the MSBA is saying is, look, our deal with you is we're giving you till June to get money and get the site. So, here we are in August, where are you?
Yeah.
They're pushing you to move, and they're saying that
Yeah.
it's now or never. You're either gonna do this or you're not, and make your decision, so.
I guess my only point is, I don't know their side of this. I don't know what they mean when they say, from an MSBA rubric point of view, secure the site. We've secured the site. It's a state law. To me, that's a secure site. It might not be to them.
I think to them, frankly, I guess a couple ways you can do it, and this is always with MSBA, it's how you phrase the question.
Yeah.
If you were to talk to the legal, to George Driscoll, Diane Sullivan, and say, exactly what do you need, they're gonna say, get your town attorney to craft the letter or show us the legal language behind it. I would suggest that you don't do that, don't ask that question, you write this letter, as we just talked about it, and I think that'll satisfy them.
Yeah. yeah.
And if it
That's the
doesn't, then we'll
state
hear
law.
back.
Right.
With a copy of the legislation saying, here, this is what they just gave to us, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
They seem pretty excited, I mean, honestly, they're genuinely, they remember this district, I mean, they think as.
We're so damn unforgettable.
I mean, you guys.
I'll go with that, that's the only thing I can.
You were one of the very first districts
It's the
to come
nicest thing I
through
can
under
say
the new
about it.
program. So you were in the worst condition out of just about any district in the entire state of Massachusetts. I mean, that's how critically the state views your needs. And that's the only reason you're still in the program. Anyone else probably would have been kicked out a long time ago. So you got an opening, and we're gonna take it to try and maximize
Yeah.
reimbursement from that, but there's a lot of pretty strict rules, so.
I said it was unique, so.
Okay, so that covers those.
Jeff Ritter's gonna, Jeff, you're gonna write that letter?
And I'll have Bennett sign it.
And and then sometime tomorrow afternoon I'll be back. I'll be back each
Might
night.
be for you too.
So these are things, so as I was saying, these aren't things that normally I'm involved with, and I would suggest what Diane Sullivan told us today is you can send these directly to them, but they need them all in order to get going, in order to actually start the process. You've got to have all this on file. So if you could copy me on it, it would be helpful, because I've got to track what's happening and not. And then you'll move into this schematic report. That's really your next big phase. And I'll try, as I'm learning more with SMMA, now I'll start talking to them and seeing exactly where we are on the checklist with all the new materials. We'll evaluate that, and we'll try and come to the next meeting with some schedules, outlining what some schedules are with the information, particularly if we can get the information that's available from the other group, then we'll have a lot more ability to review that. I guess, just thinking out loud again, for me to get a proposal from SMMA, I've got to have all that information, because otherwise, they're just guessing as to what's available. So maybe Jeff, if you and I can talk this week or early next week or something.
After the meeting,
Okay, that'd be good.
So